Rose, how are you?
I am fine. How are you?
Oh, very good. We should, as soon as it's acceptable, we should get together sometime. It'd be good to sit down with you.
Well, we will after I get my second COVID shot.
Okay. Hey, you let me know. I'll buy the coffee.
Have you had your shot? Have you
I
had
think they're
your
making a
shot?
date.
Have you had your shots?
Hey, that's between Rose and I.
Oh, well, you're being broadcast, so you might want to be careful.
No, I'm aware. Yes, Rose, I've had the first one.
Okay.
Rose, that's it. We're breaking up.
Yeah.
Cheating on me.
All
Scandalous.
right. We'll continue this conversation
All
later.
right. Hunter,
Yeah.
have you had your shot?
Yes, I had the first one.
Okay.
Isn't it weird? We wear masks, and the first question we ask everybody is if they've had their shot yet.
Yeah.
Ah,
You walk into the bank wearing a mask.
I know it's kind of, but I had to go to my allergist today. I had bronchitis twice this winter, and it's a mystery. I never left the house. But at any rate, she said that there was hardly any flu this year because of masks.
Oh, okay. Oh, thank you.
Hmm.
I guess it's a good thing from being online.
I was hoping they weren't going to make you take the minutes too, the notes too for.
One of those things we don't need them unless
I know.
it needs to go to the next step. I mean, more detail, I should say.
One, 2, 3, 4. We need a few more to get a quorum here.
Yeah, we sure do. And a secretary.
What do we need for a quorum? 5?
Uh,
Huh?
4.
Uh-huh. Have you down there at the end because I have a special favor to ask of you? Yeah, that favor?
I don't like that chair.
This is what you get for coming in person, you know? No, I'm just We're hoping you can be the secretary because Rose is on Zoom and Bob Waddle got stuck at work.
Oh, boy.
So I don't know.
That was his excuse. I don't believe that.
But you've done it before though, haven't you?
Once.
Okay.
I will, but I did.
Okay. Well, this you don't really have to worry about. It's just when they get approved. Well, Bob's not here to sign, but Judy can sign that. Don't really worry about that.
Okay.
And then this is for today's notes. Members present, absent. These are the more important ones though, because this goes through each one. Usually we break these down into 2 different ones because there's 2 different requests, even though it's the same person.
All right.
And then that's the 3rd one. And then there's your cheat sheet for calling.
Oh, good.
That's probably the most important thing.
Okay.
And then, like I said, I don't think Bob's going to be here. Might want to cross that off.
We'll do our best.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
You got any questions, just holler, don't be.
I know.
We'll help.
Thank you, I think.
Between us, we can get them done. Hi, Dave.
Hey, how good.
I can't see the count. Does it say 7? No, it's got a minute yet to go yet. How are you?
Good, good. How's everything going?
Can't complain?
Loving this weather.
Oh, isn't this weather great? Mm. What are they saying, 70 for,
All but rain.
well, but that'll be spring,
Didn't someone say snow next week already?
Hmm?
Somebody said snow next week.
Nah, it's in the 40s, which would stay good because I was going to go to the river and fish.
Oh, yeah.
Walleye runs.
Yep. Yeah, I saw guys there last weekend.
They're actually
I shouldn't say
catching,
guys.
and they're
people.
catching, and they're actually catching fish.
Oh, wow. It's very deep right now.
Are you all set?
Are we live? Yes, we're ready. Yep.
Okay, it looks like it's 7 o'clock, so I'm going to call this meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals to order for the city of Bowling Green. And let me explain a little bit about how a meeting like this works. You have asked us as board members representing the city to take an existing zoning regulation and change it for you. We're going to ask you, and part of the reasons why you want it changed, please demonstrate what the hardship would be if we don't change it for you. If we find that we're not going to grant you this request for variance, then you have the option of taking it to the Court of Common Pleas. I will tell you that we are recording what's taking place tonight so that the court stenographer can transcribe it in case that we need to have it, because this is a quasi-legal proceeding. Because it is so, you will be sworn in, and I'm going to ask you to, I guess I got everybody here that's going to be speaking. So I don't have to wait for the Zoom people. I can ask you all to stand and raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the truth and the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Okay, now you're all officially sworn in. The meeting will be conducted that we will ask we will read the variance and then we'll ask the city to state the existing zoning regulations. And then after that is done, we will ask whomever is wanting to speak on this variance to come to the podium. And we're going to ask that you state your name and address to start off with, and please talk into the mic as I said, we are recording this. When you have finished, the board members will ask you questions. When we're done, we'll close the public hearing. We'll go into what we call a private hearing, but we're all still sitting here. And you will hear us discuss your request. We will come back out and we will vote whether or not your request for your variance has been granted. So you will know immediately whether or not your request has been received. I think that's just about everything I need to give you an idea of what's going to be happening. We're a pretty nice, harmless group, so please don't be scared of us. And I'm going to start by asking if I may have an approval of the minutes from the January 13th board meeting. Don't everybody give me their motion at once. Okay, Hobie gave us the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, the minutes are approved. Our first request for a variance is C. George and Lori Jory, 1452 South Orleans Avenue, have requested a variance to allow the construction of a 10-foot by 12-foot accessory structure, which would encroach 5 feet into the 5-foot required setback from the side property line to the west and would encroach 2 feet into the 5-foot required setback from the rear line to the north. The second part of this is they want to allow the construction of a 13-foot by 82-foot 2-inch driveway expansion, which would encroach 3 feet into the 3-foot required setback from the side property line to the west. Heather?
Thank you. So since Ms. Chairman did read through the motions, I'm not going to reread those. The sections that we're requesting a variance from is section 150.55 off-street parking in all districts except the central business district unless otherwise noted in 150.55 through 150.59. There shall be provided at such time as any use is made of land or any building is constructed or enlarged. Off-street parking is designated in this article. Under D, off-street parking or loading areas in any district shall be, number 1, no closer than 3 feet to any lot line for any single or two-family dwelling. In this case, we're talking about a single-family dwelling in the R2 single-family zoning district. The second part of the section, section 150.90, rear yards B. This is in regards to accessory buildings. Number 2, in residential districts and other districts where residential uses are allowed, an accessory building with an area equal to or less than 160 square feet may be located no closer than 5 feet to the side or rear lot lines and may not exceed 12 feet in height. Here's an aerial view of the property. You can see it is on South Orleans. To the north is Cedar. And to the south is Rosewood Drive. Using pictometry to show you some imagery of the front. This is the side. Here's the other side that'd be facing east or looking towards the east. And then the rear of the property. As a side note, they did get a permit to replace their deck as part of this project or one of their projects. Here's a picture of the front of the house. Obviously, that was not current with the snow on the ground. And then here's looking more towards the side where they do wish to expand that driveway to the property line. Here's a little bit closer up view of the side of the house. Here is the rear of the property. And here's a little bit better view of the back corner where they wish to place that accessory building. Here is the sketch highlighting the driveway. Obviously, there's the existing and then the new is labeled. And then the other sketch that shows the shed in that northwest corner of the property. We did not receive any written or verbal correspondence from any of the adjoining property owners that we did mail letters to. An advertisement was placed in the newspaper of general circulation as required. A site notice was placed at the site. The other notices required by the Administrative Code were posted in the proper time and location. A letter was mailed first class mail to the tax mailing address of the owner and adjoining property owners. Therefore, all the procedural requirements for the hearing have been met.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to take, since there's 2 requests here, I'm going to take the first one first. And that is to allow the construction of a 10-foot by 12-foot accessory structure. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak to that? Mr. Jory? Give us your name and your address, please.
My name is George Joy. I live at 1452 South Orleans Avenue. I'm requesting a variance for the shed in the rear lot. The hardship being is that I already have a fence there on the corner, and instead of having a little bit of land for weeds and stuff to go or accumulate between the fence and the shed, I would prefer to have it on the in line with the fence. I already have on the north side, the fence is 3 feet from the property line, and that's because of utilities running through there. And on that corner, there's just electric line running underneath, but of course that's 6 feet down and I'm only going 3.5 inches. So I would like to do that because with the other variants as well, it's more aesthetically pleasing from the road because the concrete and the shed will all line up on that side. I think that pretty much covers it.
Okay. Members of the board, do you have any questions, Mr. Jory? Yeah.
Good.
Obi, no questions?
No, man.
Well, this is going to be an easy one.
Well, Rose is up there.
Road.
Well, I have to wait for Rose to come back so we can see her.
I'm here. I'm just
Okay,
I
thinking,
didn't hear Dave. What?
he had no
I
questions.
have no questions. I wouldn't look at it. Thanks.
Rose, do you have
Yeah.
any questions?
well, yeah, I do. Well, the map is gone now. How many feet is that between the south side of the shed and the edge of the driveway?
44 feet.
That's what I thought. But you want to take it farther north just because you don't want to have weeds back there?
Well, currently there's a fence there. And as you can see, the 54 feet from my house to the property line, the line is, it's, the scale might look a little bit like too close to the house, but it's not. It's, I like it next to the fence because it fills that whole corner, which is pretty much a waste at this point. And the shed will also, there's electric cable boxes behind it, which will also hide that.
Mhm.
Since they're leaning and, you know, they're an eyesore for underground utilities.
And you'll have 0 on the west, is that right? 0 setback?
Where the fence is, the outside of the fence is about 2 inches. So technically the shed would be 3.5 inches from the property line, even though between my house and the neighbor's house, there's a 6-inch variance between 13 feet from his, 13 feet from mine. And we've discussed it and he's pretty good with it.
Hmm,
So it'll be 3.5 inches technically from the actual property line.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have any questions? If not, I'm going to close the public hearing for this part of it. Any comments? Okay,
My only concern is his neighbor now is okay with that, but I'm always thinking down the road. You know, if someone else lives there.
Well, they have 3 little kids and they moved in a year after us and we're kind of love the neighborhood and we all pretty much get along and we have no problems whatsoever. He was a little concerned about his invisible dog fence, but he has a line running next to it and it wasn't a problem. We always talk about things. In fact, I told him I'd save all my shed stuff because he's contemplating a shed as well. And he also has a widened driveway for his camper as well, which I'm requesting next.
okay,
He understands.
okay.
So just to clarify, your hardship is that you don't want to have to mow the weeds. Am I hearing you correctly?
That, but once we also get to the concrete, you will see from the
Well,
road.
that's 2 separate issues. I want to talk about the
Okay,
shed.
okay.
What's the hardship with the shed?
Yes, the hardship would be, it would be empty space on the left, more than likely for weeds or whatever. There's sometimes water collects back there, but I also would like not to view the underground utility.
Hmm.
You know, that deck I'm redoing.
I'm sorry, you're going to have to speak up because
Oh,
you're going to have to
With
record
that
this.
deck I'm redoing, you can see it. And my neighbor behind me just built a shed over his swimming pool pump because the neighbor on my other side thought it didn't look good and it was noisy. So he covered it in a shed. You know, we all get along pretty good.
Okay,
I don't think there's any, I like having sheds. Good,
I'll
good
build you one.
idea. Yeah. I'm just concerned about the proximity to the property line.
Yes.
any further questions or comments? If not, may I have a motion, please? Dave,
So moved.
there a second?
Hmm.
Want to second the
To
motion?
close discussion,
For the first variance, the variance on the accessory building. We'll do the driveway in just a minute.
we're just closing the discussion on it.
Unless you want to have more, unless you have more questions.
No, I think we're good.
Okay. so
Are
you're gonna
we-
second it?
I will second.
Okay. Will the secretary call the roll?
Bostor,
No.
Ennis,
Yes.
Huh? Who?
Figure. Yes.
Did he call me or Ennis?
I thought he said Ennis, but so call Rose if you didn't call her before.
Hess,
No.
Johnson, yes. Passes 3-2.
Request for your variance has been granted for the accessory building on a 3-2 count.
Thank
The
you.
next part of that request we're going to take up is the construction of a 13-foot by 82-foot inch driveway expansion. So you want to talk to us? The city's already shown us that and talked about it. So would you
Yes.
like to?
Very nice pictures. And it would also line up with the shed you just granted. But my son is getting a Class A RV and we like him to visit. And due to the city's codes of not parking on the street and whatnot, it would be parked there. And the fact that it weighs 26,000 pounds, I'm requesting a variance because the hardship is with the width of about 8.5 feet. If there's a 2-foot pop out, it's 10 feet. If you park that kind of weight on the edge of concrete, it will break. And so I'm making put plywood underneath the wheels too when he visits. So, and I also have a small trailer I can park there and get to the backyard easier as well. And it doesn't seem like much of a hardship, but I don't have to mow a little strip of grass on my neighbor's side. He has a nice little tree thing there and it looks good. And my other driveway is being replaced at the same time because it's cracked and misaligned. And I'm also going out to the road with 6 inches as required by code, but I'm also doing the driveway 6 inches as well with 1/2 inch rebar due to the size of the weight. And so it doesn't break. I think that's pretty much it. It also line up with my fence.
Mm.
So I
Okay,
like aesthetically pleasing.
okay. You are aware that according to the city ordinance, you can't have a recreational vehicle parked in your yard any more longer than 10 days out of the calendar year.
Understood.
Okay,
He
as long as you understand that it's a 10-day limit on.
yes, he is Elon Musk Starlink thing. He's going to be working out that, so he will be traveling most of the year.
Mm.
So when he visits, that would be a good place to park it because you can't park it on the street either.
Okay, you're gonna have to speak up a little bit so it can be recorded.
Okay, since we like him to visit, he can't park on the street as well. It's worth it to us for him to visit.
Okay.
Hmm.
Members of the board have any questions?
When you put that
I
in,
do.
Rose, just a second. Dave's coming
Yeah.
on.
oh, when you put that in, if you're allowed to put that in, the drainage of that will go where? If it's on a property line, is it gonna go over into, off into your neighbors?
No, there's enough of a slant. It pretty much goes straight to the road.
Hmm.
So it'll drain straight off and then into the road versus in the
There'll
back
be
area?
probably a 5% grade away
Right.
from my garage. But that's pretty insignificant. It's all grass there anyhow. So
Okay,
Hmm.
as long as there's some type of drainage, I guess, between your two properties, because if you're running that concrete and all that moisture off of that, it's gotta go somewhere. As long as it's not gonna impact that neighbor.
we don't have any flooding problems there. We don't have any anywhere actually, but in the back of the lot, sometimes in the back of his lot, there's a little bit of water on a really extremely heavy rain. But I also told him that I'm going to be removing the sod before the concrete goes in, and he's getting a bunch of it for that reason, and as well as some of the topsoil from there. So it's free too. So we really do get along.
All right,
He doesn't have any, we've talked extensively about it, concerned about maybe a mirror coming over the line, but I hate running into mirrors too, so that isn't even gonna be a problem.
Rose?
Yeah, the length of the driveway bothers me. If
Mhm.
his RV is 32 feet long, why do you need 82 feet? What's the shortest amount that you could have to deal with that
Mhm.
weight?
That's a good question. I initially thought about going just to the edge of the sidewalk, but the problem is the weight. The weight would break the sidewalk, and he would cut across, since I'm redoing my main driveway because of
Mhm.
cracks and it needs to be replaced. He would end up backing across my existing driveway to pull over there, which means that my new driveway would also crack. And
Mhm.
so that, with the width, it gives us more room for pulling in there.
Are you putting in a 14-inch highway base, which is recommended for heavy-duty vehicles?
The city's right away is 12 feet, 8 inches from the outside of the sidewalk to the road, including the sidewalk at 16 feet 8. So the 82 feet or whatever includes clear out to the road.
No, I meant the base. How deep is it?
Usually driveways are 4 inches on 3 inches of crushed stone, and this is going to be 6 inches on probably 3.5 or 4 inches of stone, which is really good for draining. And it's going to have 6 inches of concrete with 1/2 inch rebar to hold it together.
Hmm.
And I like the variance, so he wouldn't have to drive across my driveway. If I'm going to spend that much on concrete, I'd like it to be there for a while.
So you're saying that it has to be 82 feet.
It wouldn't have to be technically,
Mhm.
but
No, I meant to meet your, the weight of the RV.
not
No.
necessarily, but I don't want to break the sidewalks are usually only 3.5, 4 inches.
Mhm.
And they would be reconstructed at 6 inches. And also the city's right away, that 12'8" would be 6 inches, which is code. And I think we'll end up putting rebar in that as well for a little extra holding power, but, no,
Heather, Heather, how is he with the 60/40? It just looks like so much concrete.
Oh, you meant lot coverage?
Yeah.
When I calculated it, it was fine. It didn't, I think it was maybe around 40%. But it definitely didn't go near the 60%. I think just because the sketch is not to scale, it really looks
Yeah.
out of whack.
Okay.
No offense, Mr. Jory.
no,
I just can see
have
where it's
the
deceiving.
measurement line broken on the sides for
Hmm.
the 64 feet. Is that what you're referring to?
No, she's referring to, we have a code that has a maximum of 60% lot coverage of all impervious surface. So whether it's concrete or buildings.
Oh, I see.
And so she was just concerned that it might hit that.
Well, I also have 13 feet on the other side of my house too, so
Mhm.
it's like green all the way around, well, except for the driveway. I think, did I answer your question?
Yes.
Anybody else have any more questions? Matt,
I have no further questions.
Dave? Toby?
No, ma'am.
Rose, have any more questions?
I don't think so. I just, I keep thinking if he had a highway base, we have a highway base in our driveway and it can accommodate just about anything.
What do you mean by a highway base? Is
Well,
that
it
the
goes down
thickness of-
pretty far and then they use a lot of limestone. It's equivalent to what a highway base is.
Yes, well, this will be drainage stone, and then they use either 3/4 minus stone, which is like crushed rocks that really
Limestone,
pack
probably.
really well together. So you could park a semi on it, I suppose, especially since a lot of times people will put 3/8 inch rebar or a fiber base in the concrete to keep the cracks together when and if it does crack. And I'm going with the 1/2 inch rebar just because you get a 78% increase in strength just going from a 3/8 to the extra 1/8 inch makes a really big difference for just nominal cost. And if I always think if you're going to do it, you might as well do it right.
Any other comments, questions? All right, I'm going to close the public hearing and we'll discuss.
I don't have anything. I
Well,
kind of agree with Rose what the length might be, the need for the length. But I think the idea is so that it's not right there in the neighbors and everything else. Back a little bit
Yeah.
and easy to get to.
I think it would look better.
David, I can't hear you. Could you speak
Okay,
up? on
hey,
your
sorry
mic?
about that, Rose. Hey, what I was saying was the concern was the length and the rationale behind the length, I think, in my opinion, was to put the RV back off from in front of the house.
Mhm.
So it's not as much of an eyesore, even though it can only be there for a shortened period of time, but also ease of access into the shed if he needed it, type of thing.
My neighbor told me there's a 25-yard distance that you can't have in front of your house. And
Mhm.
so that solves my problem going backwards. And if I don't go clear to the road, I'm afraid that eventually people will drive over that to get to the driveway. And now I have ruts in my yard, and so I'm trying to avoid that as well. I think it's worth the extra cost to do that, to avoid that.
I guess my big thing is I worry about not today. I appreciate the relationship you have with your neighbors. But
Mhm.
20 years from now,
Oh, sure.
I mean, if I'm moving into a neighborhood, I don't want concrete everywhere. And
That's
so
true.
I want grass, I want trees.
Yeah, I
so-
see ya. Which in the back of my yard, you'll notice it's the north side, which is difficult to grow anything there. So on the back of the yard, that ugly concrete would be offset by the lower deck that I'm putting a hot tub in it, and it'll have PVC decking over the top, which is good for 50 years. And I'm just replacing the top thing and having a pergola over that. And then the upper deck has nice 45-degree mitered corners. And on the other side, there's a water feature next to my house down with the 3-drop waterfall I built up a nice little thing over there. So they'll spend their time over there in 20 or 30 years, just like we do now. That side is pretty much insignificant when we spend all the time in the backyard. And it's kind of a dead spot for the other neighbor because they're on the other side. I don't want to say a dead spot, but I understand what you're saying.
just
I
feel-
may like it, but somebody else may not.
Correct. I just feel like there's other groups in town that have created these ordinances to protect the property values of other people. And we're supposed to show hardship, which is extreme, financial problems or something by not being able to do this. And I guess I just don't feel like that's been established. It's inconvenient for sure. But
Yeah,
I don't know why. I mean, you could park at the fairgrounds, you can park at the Walmart, all the other places you can park and not this is a residential neighborhood, not a trailer park.
it's,
I guess
it's
I don't-
also only a 3-foot difference. I can go from my house over 10 feet with no problem. My only problem is required 12 feet to park anything of, any width. And if you put the tires on the edge of concrete at 10 feet, it's going to crack. I want to avoid that crack so the tires can be over a foot or two at the least. So I don't break off the side of the concrete after I put it in. So it is, in essence, it's about, the 82 feet or whatever by 3 feet. That's the only variance required, not the whole thing. And I do also need the variance for the city's right away from the sidewalk to the road, of course.
Anything else? Anybody else? Rose, do you have anything else?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. We're going to come back into the public hearing. I'm going to ask for a motion, please.
So move.
Foster?
Did you get that, Hobie?
Yes,
Okay.
I have, and Flieger second,
Yes.
okay.
We'll call the roll, please.
Yes, ma'am. Flieger,
Yes.
Johnson, yes. Ennis,
Yes.
Hess,
I guess I will say yes.
Bostorff.
No,
It passes 4-1.
Thank you. Most
you
of your
very much.
variance, requests for variances have been granted this evening. For the second variance is Scott and Michelle Roehl have requested a variance to allow the temporary use of a structure as a short-term rental at 975 West Wooster Street for up to 12 months, which is zoned R2 Single Family Residential. Heather?
Thank you. Well, I do apologize. It's actually zoned R1 single family. There's not a big difference between those two classifications. They're both single family. In fact, during our zoning code update, we've talked about actually combining R1 and R2. So I just wanted to clarify that there's not a huge difference. So under section 150.19, R1 single family, the actual uses are listed. So there's permitted and there's conditional uses, same in R2. In this case, obviously you're allowed to rent your home. In this situation, they do want to have a rental ability of short term. So a bed and breakfast in our code under section 150.03 definitions is actually an owner occupied single family dwelling in which rooms are rented to paying transients or travelers on an overnight basis with only breakfast being served. The cost of the breakfast is included in the room rate. No room may be rented to any person for a period of more than 14 consecutive days or 24 days in any calendar year. So there's also several conditions if they were within the R2 district that is very difficult for, quite honestly, anyone to meet. So it's been one of those codes that the city has hoped to update as part of our zoning code update. So luckily the city does have the zoning code, I guess you'd say power, or the zoning board of appeals power under section 150.132 powers of the board to actually allow a temporary structure or a temporary use one time for up to 12 months. So in this situation, they are applying for this ability to use this home technically as a bed and breakfast. You can call it Airbnb, you can call it short-term rental. I mean, there's all kinds of terminology out there, but in this situation, we'll call it a short-term rental. And so anyways, under section 150.132C, temporary structures and uses, the temporary use of a structure or premises in any district for a purpose or use that does not conform to the regulations prescribed elsewhere in this chapter for the district in which it is located, provided that such use be of a temporary nature and does not involve the erection of a substantial structure. A zoning certificate for such use shall be granted in the form of a temporary and revocable permit for not more than a 12-month period, subject to conditions as as will safeguard the public health, safety, convenience, and general welfare. So again, this is an ability. It's sort of like not asking for a zoning change because it's pretty obvious you wouldn't want to ask for a commercial zoning in the middle of a single family neighborhood. So it does give somebody the ability to try something new on a temporary basis. Here's an aerial view of the property. So you can see it's pretty much right across from Wood County Hospital. The property owners do live next door on the corner there, and they did just purchase the adjacent home. Using pictometry, here's a rear view of the property. Here's a side view, so that'd be facing west. On the other side, that'd be facing east. And then a front view of the property. Here's some pictures going on Wooster, heading west. Here's a closer up view of the home. And then here's in between the home, their actual home where they live there would be on the right of the screen. We do not really have a sketch as part of this because really they're not asking to construct anything. So there really was no validity for having that. We did not receive any phone calls or written correspondence from adjoining property owners. An advertisement was placed in the newspaper of general circulation as required. A site notice was placed at the site. The other notices required by the administrative code were posted in the proper time and location. A letter was mailed first class mail to the tax mailing address of the owner and adjoining property owners. Therefore, all the procedural requirements for the hearing have been met.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, good evening. My name is Michelle Roehl. I live at 985 West Wooster. We also own, as of a couple weeks ago, 975 West Wooster, in which we're asking for a variance. The reason we're asking for this variance is, quite honestly, a very personal reason. Certainly we can rent the property. There are a million rentals, as you know, in Bowling Green. For us personally, in May of 2019, our house was hit by a 90-foot tree that came toppling down onto our roof. In the weeks that followed, we had nowhere to stay. We lived in a hotel with my children, my dog, my husband, on the third floor with no elevator. So we were carrying things up and down, moving in, moving out. It was a constant process for 6 long weeks. We looked everywhere for a short-term rental because our insurance company would not allow a 1-year rental or even a 9-month rental based on what most of the landlords, property owners in Bowling Green want, because it's a college town. No one wanted to do a short-term rental for us. We ended up having to move to Perrysburg. 4 separate people, 4 people driving daily, all on different schedules. My daughter in high school, all of us with different jobs and different schedules. It was, to be honest, quite a nightmare. We found at that point in time, we realized there's such a need for this. There's a need for a short-term rental, whether you, and it's not technically an Airbnb, it's not a B&B that we want to offer. We are not providing breakfast. We are just want to provide the opportunity for people who are either displaced or traveling that want to have somewhere to stay for a short term, less than that 2-week period of time. So we really want to, we're pretty connected with BGSU. I have a lot of family members that are very interested in stays based on the fact that they don't have, they have special needs. A hotel doesn't work for them. If they want to stay a couple of weeks, et cetera, getting their students moved in. I've had people requesting those kinds of things, just kind of putting feelers out there. So for us personally, we really want to provide that opportunity. There's a need. I know that within the last 3 weeks, I believe, I know 3 people personally who have been displaced from their homes due to fire or another, some type of destruction to their home. And that's just not available in our community. And we'd really like to provide that. So having a variance to be able to give us an opportunity to try this out for the next year, and then maybe work with the zoning in the city to see if, something more long-term would become available as an option for us.
You do understand that this is only for 12 months
Correct.
if it's granted.
Yes.
So at the end of 12 months, you have a plan, like a plan B?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's absolutely a plan B. There's so many opportunities to rent in town, and to about 1 million different people. We've already had people reaching out looking for more of a long-term rental. That's not really what we want to do. Based on our personal experience, the number of nights we laid awake, crying, searching, driving around countless hours, trying to find a rental, anybody to rent to a short term when our family was displaced. That's really where the need comes from. So we want to try that out. We want to see if it's an opportunity that, we can provide a service, provide that home for people who are struggling, or for those students, et cetera, coming into BGSU, or anybody else for that matter. We recently heard of the hospital. They have transient doctors and nurses right now looking for places to stay due to COVID. And they would rather have a home to stay in that feels a little more homey and provides a kitchen than to be in a hotel. So there's a lot of different options, but yes, at the end of that 12 months, we do have some other good options available to us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But are you renting like a room? So I
It
come
would-
in, I'm gonna get to rent a room.
We're going to rent the whole house.
Okay.
So the house would be rented as a whole. There's 3 bedrooms, so we would provide beds in each room. It'll be fully furnished is the plan. So anybody who comes in would have that opportunity to stay. It's just as such, when we were displaced, the insurance company gave us the opportunity to rent furniture, to do all of that. We want to provide the all-in-one kind of package deal. So if somebody wants to come in, everything is there, even kitchen utensils, things like that. So they wouldn't have to move their own things in. And then anybody who would want to stay, short-term for a weekend, et cetera, for a week with BGSU or, the hospital, executives, et cetera, all of that would be there for
So it
them.
would be basically one family at a time. It wouldn't be,
Correct.
okay, I've got another bedroom open.
No.
Johnny, you come in too.
No, absolutely not. We will not be doing that.
Alright.
Yeah. And they'll be well vetted. I've been doing a ton of research on this. There are lots of ways to make sure that, to the best of your ability, these people are going to be taking care of your home. They're not going to be having parties, doing anything crazy. We live right next door. We love this community. We know our neighbors. I have to tell you, we're probably the pickiest of all the neighbors in the whole neighborhood. We are not going to allow anything to go on that we wouldn't want to go on. So if there's a problem, et cetera, there are opportunities and there are, laws and guidelines as to how you can then kick somebody out if, somebody comes in and lies and doesn't do what they're supposed to do. There's all kinds of ways to go about that. So this part of one of the reasons why we really like a short-term rental as opposed to a long-term rental is because a long-term rental, you sign a contract for, or at least for a year, somebody comes in, they start destroying your house in the first month. You don't have a lot you can do without legal proceedings. The opportunity exists with a short-term rental that they're not going to be there as long. Hopefully they're not going to make as much of a fuss and you can get rid of them a lot quicker.
What is the longest that you would take somebody on a short-term rental?
Well, it does depend a little bit. The variance in particular is for that is basically 1 day to 2 weeks. But I guess right now it's going to be, if this is approved, it would be kind of a case by case. I don't foresee wanting to allow anybody to stay more than a month. But if an insurance company came to us and said, we have this family, they are in dire need, they need it for 4 months, like we were displaced for 4 months, it would be something we would take into consideration. But I don't know that I have an exact answer just yet. It would very much be case by case.
Okay.
Is there anywhere in there that says that the length of time they can stay maximum length in this?
No, we were just going by the bed and
No,
breakfast
we were just
definition
doing the
of
bed
2
and
weeks.
breakfast.
Also, may I ask a question?
Yes, please.
To Heather, really. It was one of our 2 local papers, I'm not sure which one it was online I read, that something like 50% of the homes in Bowling Green are rentals.
About 60%, correct.
I hate to add to that. I mean, for a community, we want to have permanent residents that's how a community grows. And I'm concerned we have a situation Rose maybe be able to address better. She's worked hard on the east side. And with all due respects, I know you're good people. and you're going to want good people coming into your house. But when you rent, you can't say, I'll rent to him because I like him, and I won't rent to him because I don't like him.
Yeah.
You know, people are protected from that. So
Right.
it's difficult to control who gets into homes.
It is to an
When it's rented.
extent. Yeah, absolutely. And I think long-term rentals, there is more of an opportunity to have someone come in that may not do things that you would want them to do to your home. So the situation is either we rent it long-term if we don't get the variance, or rent it short-term. So that's kind of where we're at right now. It will be a rental for the time being. We are very blessed with the opportunity to purchase the house. One of the other reasons why we really would like to have the house be on a short-term basis is my mom. We moved up here a few years ago. She's elderly. She has a lot of health issues. I just took her to the hospital last week for another health issue, and she was so it might be something that we move her next door to us so we can take even better care of her and keep an eye on her. Right now, she loves where she is, and she has some other neighbors that she absolutely adores, but it's just a few minutes away. But if it comes a time, we have that opportunity. Same with my husband's family. You know, he has parents who eventually will be elderly. So I don't want to lock ourselves into, if we don't have to, at least in the short term, a long-term rental situation where we're going to need that house for my mom or for other
Okay, so
parents.
I missed
Yeah, sorry.
this, when you came in and gave your name and address,
Yes,
the home that you're living in now is adjacent,
it's
next
right
door?
next door.
It's
Correct.
next door. Okay.
Yes, yes. Yeah. And we have amazing neighbors in that neighborhood. And the house on the opposite side, to be honest, the people that lived in this house, and even Ernie Spazzato years ago, they're the ones who really kind of warmed our hearts to the whole neighborhood and staying there. Since then, since their passing, we've had a couple of people come in. One of the ladies rented it out. We had some college students there. They weren't bad kids, but it's something that we don't really want to have happen. We'd like to have some opportunity. And when you use a service, so this is not an Airbnb, because Airbnb is just a website that you use to basically advertise this type of short-term stay. So there's Airbnb, there's VRBO, there's other lesser known websites that can be used. All of those, though, have terminology, legal protections, those kinds of things. So granted, no, I'm not going to say, you're not allowed to stay here because I don't like you. But during the process, there is a whole vetting process that Airbnb, that VRBO, that all of these websites use. So I can look and see, okay, these people have a 1-star rating out of 5. The last place they stayed, they trashed it. People are saying that they, smoked weed. I have the opportunity, I have the legal right to say, okay, I'm not comfortable with you staying in my home, and I can deny that rental. So I hope that answers the question maybe a little better.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I have a
Rose?
question. Yeah, I do. I just am concerned about at the end of the year that there is an understanding that this can't be repeated, right? Short
Oh,
term.
absolutely. Yeah, we understand that
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay.
Yep, 100%.
Okay. You do have a lot of competition now with the Hilton.
Oh, that's okay.
If that tree had fallen on your house now, you'd have a place out here.
Well, yeah. I've thought about that
Homestay.
too. I've thought about that too. But at the
Yeah.
time, it was very difficult because we have a dog.
There
So
wasn't anything
There
then
wasn't.
in
You're right.
2019, but this
Yeah.
one opened up.
yeah, it was a very difficult situation. It's still pretty tender on the heart to talk about. So
Mm.
it's just something that is so important to us that we want to try and see what we can do to help at least for 12 months, and then maybe work with the zoning board as they make their changes and recommendations through the year through the different zoning laws. So
I'm a little bit confused about that because you've said that twice with the zoning. Are you anticipating that maybe the zoning will change and you can do this permanently, or?
I don't think there's an anticipation. I think that there's an opportunity to at least be part of the discussion as the zoning laws are updated. Heather and I had that discussion, and she said that at least things are going to potentially be revised.
Mhm.
This may or may not be part of that, and that's fine.
Okay.
if we have that opportunity and we can show over the next 9 months, 12 months, whatever it comes up to be, that this is a viable situation, that it can benefit the city, I would love to have that discussion. I'd love to be part of the discussion. And if it doesn't work out, then that's fine too. We are not putting all of our eggs in one basket. This is just, like I said, something that is really important to us. And we wanted to give it a try for the next 12 months. Does that help? Okay, great.
Anyone else? Any comments, questions? I, for one, would like to put a strong vote in that we look at the bed and breakfast zoning regulations and try to, I can see why we don't have very many of these in Bowling Green.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the
Yeah.
constraints on them are just almost undoable. So, okay, I'm going to close the public hearing and let's have some discussion here.
Madam Chair, although I have great understanding and feeling for why I think this is something that they want to test. But I also have a strong feeling that this issue is greater than a variance board should deal with because it has implications for the entire community. And if we're looking at just a year, which is what they're requesting, I would rather have that year be spent with planning commission or the city looking at this thing in greater detail and then having a community decision made for the good of the community. And then if it needs to be considered for a variance after which, then that should come to us. But I feel like we're doing this backwards. That's just my opinion.
Thank you.
I'm with
That
you.
was my initial reaction.
Rose, just a second, Dave was talking.
No, go ahead, Rose.
No, that
Okay.
was my initial reaction. When I first opened my packet, I thought, isn't this something for the planning commission? Then I called Heather and she said, no, it's just a temporary, request. So, but I hear you, Hobie.
One of my concerns is if we set a precedent for allowing these, like you said, Hovey, can't put the genie back in the bottle. And currently within the city, you're having a lot of issues with rental properties and now starting to open them up as temporary, for the 2 weeks, whatever, could be extremely detrimental to the neighborhood.
Mhm.
And that is a concern to me, because then you have a revolving open door of people in and out, in and out, in and out. So to me, it's,
Ma'am?
I just want to be crystal clear, they can make it a rental regardless.
I
So
do
I just want to make
understand
sure
that. I
everybody.
do understand that.
And there's plenty of them all over.
Right, I just want to be clear about
For a
that.
A lot of
longer
which we
period
don't
of
even know
time.
about. I mean, there are rentals that are out there that we don't even know are being rented. So,
Right, for a longer period of time, not okay, I've got a weekend event, they're in and out, in and out, and in and out. Because now you're open, like I said, opening the door for some of the neighborhoods that are already inundated and having issues. And now you're gonna allow them to, maybe we couldn't rent it because the college kids didn't want it, but we can now start doing this also. And that to me is a concern.
Yeah.
If do you mind just for a second if I address that? So what I've noticed is if you actually go to Airbnb website, if you go to VRBO, there are listings in Bowling Green.
Oh,
They're
doubt
not, we're trying to do this the right way. We've asked, Heather for advice on how to go about this and what the best option is. And so that's kind of where we're at. We want to do this the right way. We want to support, if this ends up being something long-term, and I know that's not what we're talking about right now, but long-term, we want it to benefit the city. We personally had fire and rescue and police at our house helping us out. We want to make sure that we're supporting the community and everybody that uses these sites and that does short-term rentals typically, they're used to doing this. They want a house. They're typically going to be executives and people who are going to care for the community and then are going to bring in, a lot to the community as well. So.
And I appreciate that. And I also know that in my own neighborhood, there's rentals that it's supposed to be a residential neighborhood. So I know they exist in the town. I also know, though, that within our community where my residential neighborhood is, there are people that are unhappy that they're rentals. So, like I said, this is an issue I believe that we need to address community-wide.
I feel like we're mixing problems here. What problems do you have with the rental properties that are in your communities, in your neighborhoods?
What problems do I have?
Yeah, just
I don't have
specifically.
any problems. I'm saying that I'm hearing people in my neighborhood who are unhappy that a home is rented rather than it's owned by a homeowner.
And did they give you any reason why they're unhappy? Is it
Sure,
the-
things like yard maintenance and, an extra car in the street that shouldn't be there and, just
So
small
curb
neighborhood
appeal,
issues.
yeah, sure,
Just
sure.
neighborhood issues.
I think in this particular instance, because they live next door, that
it's
speaks
massive,
volumes to me, because they're not going to want to live next to a dirt bag house, right? Because that's going to
Absolutely not.
impact their property value. I'd feel a little differently if they were coming in from California and after this
Right.
meeting, they're getting on a jet and flying out of
Right,
here.
and I,
Absolutely.
But
and I
so
agree to that, and I agree that, they're good people and they wouldn't want that to happen. But then what happens if we use Mr. Frieger's analogy that you decide to sell the house that you live in now and move away from the one that you're renting, and that somebody that moves in beside you has different attitudes or thinking. I just feel that we are opening up an issue that I think needs to be addressed as a community.
But in
That's all I'm
her
saying.
specific instance, we're talking about 1 year.
Correct.
I mean, she could have just not came to us and it can be a rental regardless. She's talking about changing the condition for 12 months and then having to come back if needed
Right.
and make it either a permanent situation or decide that wasn't for us. We'll just make it a 12-month rental.
Yeah, 100%.
I
Don't
understand.
think they can come back for another.
They can't come back for
Well,
another
yeah.
12 months, no. They
Okay,
can't
then
be,
it's, all right, then in that case,
this is
this
a
is done.
one-time deal.
Either
12 months
the
Yeah.
code changes then, is that what I'm getting? Either the code
Right.
changes or
Right.
it goes to a
Or
long-term
it
rental?
goes to a
Okay.
long-term rental.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, either
Yeah.
way. So we're talking about a 12-month period
Yeah.
here.
So
And we'll-
some of the objections to a rental, you could run into anyway, because you do have the option of running it
Correct.
if this isn't granted.
Right, 100%, and I fully understand that. I mean, we had some college students next door. I totally understand that. We've even had discussions. We're kind of in a unique place in a way because the hospital's across the street. We don't have any neighbors across the street. The other neighbor on the other side, we've talked to them, and they're actually very excited about the opportunity because they have family in Cleveland. They have parents who are very concerned about COVID. We have already done a lot of research, are establishing some cleaning regulations and things that we're going to do in the house because I am immunocompromised. I don't go hardly anywhere. This is something that I take seriously, and we will make sure that there's a clean, comfortable space for people to be in that's as clean as we can make it. And I can guarantee that piece of it. As far as landscaping, I already have, I mean, if you look at our house after the destruction, we spent thousands of dollars last year of our own money that insurance did not cover re-landscaping. I've already got, my poor husband's already like, oh my God, how many more flowers are you going to put in next door? So the house is going to be lovely. I can guarantee that from our standpoint. I understand that's not with everyone else, but certainly with the house being next door, and the fact that, at least in my mind, I don't know about my husband, but I still see Neva and Ernie there, and I still see them the first time when we were looking at that house because we rented it for 3 years before we bought our current house. And Neva and Ernie, come on over, come sit on our back porch, and we had a drink with them of coffee, and they really made us feel at home. I would never, in my wildest dreams, do anything to make this house or anybody there uncomfortable, especially the neighbors on the other side. So for sure. I don't know if that helps, but.
Any other comments?
No, ma'am.
Okay, I'm going to take the back into the public hearing. I would like a motion.
So moved.
Oh, wait a minute. There's just one, I don't know if this is something I can introduce now before you vote on it, but there were 3 different addresses listed in this request. There was 975, 985, and 875. And the letter says that it's a request to change 875 West Wooster. So should we want to correct that before we vote?
Our request says 975 West Wooster Street for up to 12 months.
But in the letter, it says 875 that Heather sent.
There is a small strip, I believe, that's part of the property that's just to.
Shouldn't that be 975?
It,
Yeah.
yeah, it should be. I don't.
Yeah, just my ear.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not perfect, that's for sure.
The
No, I just thought the record should be correct.
variance as read is the variance we're going to be voting on, Rose, and that says 975. So that's fine.
Mhm. Yep, and that's the address the neighbors all
Okay.
got, so yeah.
We have,
Mr. Fleeger has made the motion.
yes, Mr.
Yes.
Fleer made the motion.
But a second,
I'll second.
Matt seconded.
Mr. Bostard?
Will the secretary call the roll, please?
Yes, ma'am. Let's see, Johnson, no. Ennis,
Yes.
That
Hess,
was
that was
Hess
was
voting.
Hess.
Yes, that was Hess voting. Did you capture her vote?
Yeah, I'm asking you now.
Oh,
so.
okay. This is really very difficult. Yes,
And Bostorff
Yes.
and Fleeger.
no.
It passes 3-2.
thank you.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Good luck. And remember, it's only for a year.
Yes.
Is there anyone in the we're at lobby visitation now? Is there anybody who wants to visit with us? Hearing no one wants to spend any more time with us than necessary. We can take a hint. So I will call for an adjournment, please. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
Okay, you are now adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks, Rose.
You're welcome. Hobie, don't forget to put the time of adjournment.
He does a good job, Rose. He's a good.
7:55, Hobie.
This is your seat, not mine.
Backseat driver.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
Thank you all.
supposed to be doing it.